In this video, we'll be taking a look at Clone Captain Rex for the Black Series 6-inch line, and this is based upon his appearance from the Bad Batch series. This is probably maybe the third or fourth release overall for Captain Rex. I unfortunately missed out on the Clone Wars version of him. Interesting story, I'll tell about that here in a minute. So as an alternative, when the Bad Batch Rex was making its rounds, I went ahead and got this one. Of course, as most people know, the Clone Wars Captain Rex is probably one of the most expensive Black Series action figures out there, and I wasn't really willing to pay potentially $100 plus for a Black Series figure. So then when this Bad Batch version started making its rounds, it was around the $30 range. I think he was a Walmart exclusive, if I recall correctly, and they were asking maybe $29.99 for this, which is still a ridiculous markup. There is really nothing more premium about this Rex than any other Black Series action figure, quite frankly. No extra accessories, everything you see here is pretty much it. But I figure better to spend $30 than to spend $100, and I would like to have a Rex for my collection. So that's what ended up happening. Although I didn't get this through Walmart, I got this through eBay. But while it's in stock at Walmart, typically prices are pretty lateral over to eBay as well. So I said I was going to tell a story about the Clone Wars Captain Rex. So I've actually had a few opportunities to get that action figure during the time he was making his rounds. And this was in the red and black packaging. The second release. Of course, the very first release of him was the HasCon exclusive, I think, where it had all the additional weapons and accessories. I have seen that set in person before, but it was at a local comic book store, and then they were asking a ridiculous amount for it, so I passed up on it. But then I went to another comic book store, and they actually had a whole bunch of Rexes on the shelves there, and they were only asking $19.99 at the time for him. And I had one in hand, and then I decided, you know what, I don't really want this action figure for now, so I went ahead and put him down, and then I walked away and never looked back. I kind of wish I got that Rex at the time, but oh well, it is what it is. I will say with this Bad Batch version, there are some things I think are better about it compared to the Clone Wars version. I have seen a comparison of the two, and we'll point some of those things out here in a moment. Let's just take a closer look at this guy. So obviously this is nothing like how he looks in the actual Bad Batch series at all, at least for the helmet. From my understanding, Hasbro went off the designs of concept art when making this, and of course this was still very early on in the making of the show, so they just went off of whatever they had, and then when the final product actually came out, it was something totally different. Kind of similar to like the Captain Ballast and Captain Hauser story. Perhaps Hauser was originally supposed to be named Ballast, and then for whatever reason it changed to Hauser last minute. And the concept art portion about Rex is obviously this rangefinder here. Well, personally, I'm kind of glad he has that. I think it looks pretty good. It is kind of ridiculous he has his traditional rangefinder for the clone helmets, and then on top of that he does have this one, so he's basically got two rangefinders on his helmet, and you can have them both operate at once, but it looks kind of ridiculous. You might be able to take that off if you work with it, but for me it's easier just to leave it on there. Then of course you can lift up the rangefinder to reveal his helmet. The paint is kind of sloppy on the visor. As you can see on the edges here, it's missing some paint, and along his blue lines as well. It doesn't look like it's weathering or wear and tear at all. It just looks like Hasbro missed some of the paint. But they did add some nice weathering to his helmet there, as you can see with some of the dirt and grime on his helmet. He does have his usual details. He does have the tick marks on the side of his helmet there. and on both sides. Then if you take the helmet off, you can reveal his face. It's a little difficult to pop that off sometimes because he has that hood there. But this is one thing I do think is probably better about the Bad Batch Rex compared to the Clone Wars Rex is the head sculpt. Well, I think the head sculpts are just about the same, but the paint I think looks much more crisper and better on this Rex. So he has blonde hair and a neutral Tamora Morrison expression. I think that looks pretty spot on to him, and it is more of a realistic interpretation. At least I think it looks like one. They did a very nice job with the photoreal. So the original Clone Wars Rex, it was still during that transition phase from going out of the painted faces and then into photoreal. And I think depending on the release you got, it was either a painted face or a photoreal. Now for his cloak here, you can take this off. I'm actually not going to take this off because it's probably going to be time consuming, and then trying to put this back on is going to be extremely difficult. But I'll try to show off his armor as best I can. So we know that his pauldron is slightly modified in the Bad Batch. He doesn't have the actual shoulder piece anymore. He just has the basically, he just has it on just to keep the ammo pouch on, and that's about it. As for the rest of his armor, it's pretty much the same thing as the Clone Wars Rex. Nothing really new about that. But they did add some nice weathering. He does have his markings. As for the cloak itself, I think it's pretty good. I think I have heard some theories as to why there was a markup with this, other than being exclusive, but some of it had to do with this cloak. Something to do with the material and the detailing in it, which, whatever excuses anyone can make up for Hasbro, but I wouldn't be surprised. See, his hood does have a lot of mud on it, I suppose. It does have the markings on his arms. Then he does have his belt and his comma, which is all soft goods for the comma, and the holsters here. Then for his legs, interesting thing I'll note about his legs. So Hasbro actually swapped out his left and right legs for the opposites. You can tell that this is supposed to be more of a right leg, while this one is a left. And at first that seems kind of odd why they would do that, but I think they did it because it's to keep the legs from bowing out. You may have seen some of my recent videos of clones and like the Stormtrooper Commander, for instance, and the legs have bowed out over time, and this is supposed to help counterbalance that. So I guess it's kind of a quick fix idea on Hasbro's part. I would say just make better legs, but you know, if you have to operate with what you have, I suppose that's a pretty good idea. And it's not too obvious. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, but some people might not really notice it. As you can see, he has a lot of mud on his boots. In terms of his articulation, he does have the ball joint, the head there. Double hinge, I think. Yeah. He has pretty good range of motion on his head there. The hinge at the shoulders, which has a good range of motion. And of course, because he is Captain Rex, he has the Captain Rex elbows, which is what he's famous for, which go way past 90 degrees. Hinge wrist, this one goes in and out, this one goes up and down. Joint the torso, hinge hips, and swivel thigh. Double hinge at the knees, It does have the pins. And then the rocker ankles. In terms of weapons and accessories, if you want to count his cloak here, and of course his helmet, and then his signature pistols, and that's pretty much it. Which are pretty much just the same DC-17 pistols that we've gotten with various clones before. And they do fit securely inside his holster. Unfortunately, his left hand is not, or it doesn't have a trigger finger at all, so he doesn't really hold the pistol too well. But I think that's pretty much all I can tell you about this Bad Batch Black Series Rex. Usually like to keep the rangefinder down. I will bring out the TVC version of him, which is pretty similar. And they look pretty good. So would I recommend this Rex for your collection? If you're a big fan of the character, yes. If you want just one Rex and you want the definitive one, it's probably going to be the Clone Wars one, because it's his most iconic appearance. And as far as price is concerned, I think this Rex is more on the expensive side now, up there with the Clone Wars version. So I suppose just shop around whichever one you want, see if there's a good deal. Otherwise, I would not pay an outrageous amount for this. But if you did find a Bad Batch Rex for $30, I would say it's worth it. But these days, it seems like it goes up in the hundreds, similar to the Clone Wars version. So it's totally on your discretion then. But he's a good action figure. I'm happy he's part of my collection for, the last 3 years or so now. And I'm glad to have a Black Series Rex. I will mention that at the time of this video, Hasbro is doing another repack of the Clone Wars version, and it has been making its way around the online retailers. Unfortunately, all the pre-orders have been selling out yet again. If I did have an opportunity to get one, I would. But every time I get online, it's always sold out. So for the time being, I'm okay with this Rex. But if I get a chance to get a Clone Wars one, I will get that one as well. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. There will always be more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all your support, and check out some links in the description if you haven't done so already. Of course, as always, thanks for watching.